اربعین کے سوگوارو الوداع اے الوداع، شاہدی کے دوست دارو الوداع اے الوداع۔ کہ پیارو الوداع اے الوداع،
بھائی کے سوگوارو الوداع اے الوداع، شاہدی کے دوست دارو الوداع اے الوداع،
دشت سونا پاس بستی بھی نہیں،
دشت سونا پاس بستی بھی نہیں،
دشت سونا پاس بستی بھی نہیں، بے دیارو بے مزارو الوداع اے الوداع،
بھائی کے سوگوارو الوداع اے الوداع، شاہدی کے دوست دارو الوداع اے الوداع،
کربلا کی خاک کو سونپا تمہیں،
کربلا کی خاک کو سونپا تمہیں،
کربلا کی خاک کو سونپا تمہیں، عرش اعظم کے ستاروں الوداع اے الوداع،
بھائی کے سوگوارو الوداع اے الوداع، شاہدی کے دوست دارو الوداع اے الوداع،
اکبر و اصغر علی کی
دارو الوداع ہے الوداع
قبر سے آواز آئی ہے بہن
قبر سے آواز آئی ہے بہن
قبر سے آواز آئی ہے بہن وہ بہن زینب سدھارو الوداع ہے الوداع
بھائی کے سوگوارو الوداع ہے الوداع شاہدی کے دوست دارو الوداع ہے الوداع
گھر کہاں کنبا کہاں قبریں کہاں
کہاں کنبا کہاں قبریں کہاں
گھر کہاں کنبا کہاں قبریں کہاں اے غریبو بے دیارو الوداع ہے الوداع
بھائی کے سوگوارو الوداع ہے الوداع شاہدی کے دوست دارو الوداع ہے الوداع
قبر پہ بیٹوں کی زینب نے کہا
بیٹوں کی زینب نے کہا
قبر پہ بیٹوں کی زینب نے کہا ماں وطن جاتی ہے پیارو الوداع ہے الوداع
بھائی کے سوگوارو الوداع ہے الوداع شاہدی کے دوست دارو الوداع ہے الوداع بھائی کے سوگوارو الوداع ہے
الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي والذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد. Sisters, brothers, welcome to our program. We'll shortly begin here. We are going for Maghrebain. Follow this up with the Qur'an and Marthiya and the presentation for the night. So let us all get ready here for the Salaat Maghrebain. Sallu ala Nabi. Allah.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. حي على خير العمل. حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وسلم.
Can you guys hear me okay? There's an echo, right? Need to address this for a second.
إن الله
بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن علي نبي الله أشهد أن علي حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على خير الأمل حي على خير الأمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. The lines are straight to the left, to the right, visual gaps. الصلاة ونسك والمحيا والممات لله. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم إياك نعبد ونستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم. بسم الله الرحمن نعيت الذي يكذب به كذلك على جمال المسكين ويل للمصلين الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون ويمنعون سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبه. الله أكبر حول الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد ونستعين الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أحد الله الصمد ولم يولد ولم يكن. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي ولنا يوم ربي صغيرا. رب صل على محمد. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان أنا ربنا العظيم وبه. سمع الله لمن حمده.
Subhanallah, 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 subhana rabbi Allahu Akbar, astaghfirullah rabbi. Subhanallah, 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 subhanallah. Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن محمدا رسول اللهم صل على محمد الله الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الله أكبر استغفر الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان يا ولي الأمر الله أكبر بسم الله وبالله الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد السلام علينا السلام علينا وعلى الله الصالحين السلام علينا وملائكته يصلون على النبي والذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما صل على محمد وعلى محمد بسم الله أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام لا أتوب إليه أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام لا أتوب إليه أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم إني أسألك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والنجاة من النار ومن كل بلية والفوز بالجنة والرضوان في دار السلام وجبار نبيك محمد عليه وآله السلام اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك اللهم صل على محمد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله رسول الله
اللهم صل على محمد
أشهد أن رسول الله
اللهم صل على
أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر
الله أكبر.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن مالك إياك نعبد ونستعين الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم رددناه أسفل سافلين الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فنذبك بعد بالدين أليس الله بأحكم الحاكمين سمع الله لمن حمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الله أكبر حول الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن مالك إياك نستعين الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم بسم الله الرحمن الله الله الصمد يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي يوم الحساب كما رفعني صغيرا صل على محمد سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم سمع الله لمن حمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن محمدا صل على الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سمع الله لمن حمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان سبحان ربي الله اللهم صل على سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان الله 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 يا ولي العفو الله أكبر لله ولله الحمد أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليكم السلام عليكم وملائكته يصلون على النبي والذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد اللهم إنه ليس لي علم بموضع رزقي وإنما أطلبه بفترات تخطر على قلبي فأجول في طلبه البلدان فأنا في معنى طالب كالحيران ما أدري في سهل هو أم في جبل أم في أرض أم في سماء أم في بر أم في بحر فعلى يدي من ومن قبل من وقد علمت أن علمه عندك فأسبابه بيدك فأنت الذي تقسمه بلطفك وتسببه برحمتك اللهم فصل على محمد وآله واجعل يا رب رزقك لي واسعا ومطلبه سهلا ومأخذه غريبا فلا تؤمنني بطلب ما لم تقدر لي فيه رزقا فإنك غني عن عذابي وأنا فقير إلى رحمتك صل على محمد وآله وجد على عبدك بفضلك إنك ذو فضل عظيم اللهم صل على
This verse on this night of our day. Let us remember all the people who are situated around the world, those who are impacted by natural calamities, by fire, flooding, those who are in hospitals. Our brother Ghulam's father is admitted to hospital in Orlando. People who are at home recovering, people who are languishing unjustly in prisons, those stuck in conflict zones, displaced or refugee camps, those who are having hardship. Let's pray to Allah, may بالله الرحمن الرحيم أمن يجيب الضيفان يكشف السوء 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 أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه يكشف السوء. Requesting Surah Al-Fatiha for the silent survival of human beings and the family who support the Sabbath night, those who support our Maghrebain programs and all the Maghrebains in our family and our partners. Continue our program now. Let's all get situated for the rest of the program, inshallah. Let's begin here in 5 minutes or so. عليه وسلم تسليما. Sister brothers, if I can request everybody to please settle down so we can start our program. We're just going to wait for everybody to settle down, please. Brother Gadir, Brother Hayat, can you please close the door? Sisters and brothers, if you want to continue conversation, go in the hallway, please.
الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولقد كتبنا في الزبور من بعد الذكر أن الأرض يرثها عبادي الصالحون إن في هذا لبلاغا لقوم عابدين وما أرسلناك إلا بالعالم قل إنما يوحى إلي فإن تولوا فقل آذنت على سواء وإن أدري أقريب أم بعيد ما توعدون إنه يعلم الجهر من القول ويعلم ما تكتمون وإن أدري لعله فتنة لكم ومتاع إلى حين قال رب احكم بالحق وربنا الرحمن المستعان على ما تصفون صدق الله العلي العظيم. God, Lord of mercy, the giver of mercy. Wrote in the Psalms, as we did in earlier scripture, my righteous servants will inherit the earth. There truly is a message in this for the servants of God. It was only as a mercy that we sent you, prophet, to all people. Say, what is revealed to me is that your God is one God. Will you submit to him? But if they turn away, say, I have proclaimed the message fairly to you all. I do not know whether the judgment you are promised is near or far. But he knows what you reveal and conceal. I do not know. This time may well be a test for you, and enjoyment for a while. He said, my Lord, pass the true judgment, and our Lord is the Lord of mercy. Seek his assistance against what you disbelievers say.
الملائكة يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. محترما خلال من ماه من هم سفر و همدم و همراه من بی تو دلم طایر بی بار بود داغ 40 روز 40 سال بود شعله نثار جگرم کرده اند با سر تو هم سفرم کردم، پیشوی محمل من صف زدن، رقص کنان خنده زنان کف زدن. محمل ما در ملأ قام بود، همدم ما سنگ لب بام بود. دیده به خورشید رخت دوختم، آب شدم ساختم و سوختم. رست تو من رست تو می داد به زینب سلام، رست تو می داد به زینب سلام. چشم تو می گشت به من هم کلام، چشم تو از چار طرف سوی من، نغمه قرآن تو نیروی من. حال پس حال پی عرض سلام آمدم، حال پی عرض سلام آمدم. فاتح و پیروز ز شام آمدم. ای به جمالت نگه فاطمه، ای سر نی هم سخن ما همه. باز هم از وحی محمد بگو، از گلوی پار خوش آمد بگو. آمده ام شانه به مویت زنم، بوسه به رگهای گلویت زنم. دست برون از جگر خاک کن، اشک غم از دیده من پاک کن. ای به لبت زمزمه آب آب، آب بده بر رباب. جان اخا غنچه پر کجاست، آب که آزاد شده است در کجاست. آمدم از شام سوی این حرم، آمدم از شام سوی این حرم. تا به مزار تو طواف آورم. مر به مزار تو صفا القمه، مر به مزار تو صفا القمه. سعی کنم پشت سر فاطمه. آمده ام ای همه جا همراهم، تا سفر خویش گزارش دهم. نام تو زنده ز بیام من است، فتح دو در خطبه شام من است. وحی خدا داشت بیانم حسین، تیغ علی بود زبانم حسین. سوختم و ساختم، لرزه به کاخ ستمم انداختم. طفل تو گردید پیام آورد، شام شد آرامگه دخترت. گرچه به پای سرت آرام شد، ستیر دائم تو در شام شد. زنده شد از دفن شب دخترت، خاطره دفن شب مادرت. نشود ناطق ایلاد هنگام ممات، هر زبانی که فرستد به محمد صلوات.
محمد علی محمد بلند تر سلام.
اللهم صل على
بھیا تمہیں گھر جا کہاں آئے گی زینب گھبرائے گی زینب کیسا یہ بھرا گھر ہوا برباد الہی کیا تباہی اب اس کو ناباد کبھی پائے گی زینب گھبرائے گی زینب گھر جا کے کسے دیکھے گی قاسم ہے نا اکبر سے بھی ہے اپنے علی اصغر کو کہاں پائے گی زینب زینب پوچھیں گے جو سب لوگ کے بازو پہ ہوا کیا یہ نیل کیسا کس کو نشان رسی کے دکھلائے گی زینب گھبرائے گی زینب پھٹ جائے گا بس دیکھ کے ہی گھر کو کلیجا یاد آؤگے بھیا دل ڈھونڈے گا تم کو تو کہاں آئے گی زینب گھبرائے گی زینب بے پردہ ہوئی قید بھی خار نے اٹھائی موت نہ آئی کیا جانیے کیا کیا بھی دکھ پائے گی زینب گھبرائے گی زینب اور محمد آل محمد بلند ہے اللہ
السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ.
وعلیکم السلام
اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. الحمد للہ رب العالمین والصلاة والسلام علی اشرف الانبیاء خاتم النبیین نبینا وسیدنا ابی القاسم محمد
اللهم
صل علی
اللہ
بیت الطیبین الطاہرین المعصومین. رب اشرح لی صدری ویسر لی امری واحلل لسانی یفقهوا. So welcome brothers and sisters for our program for Arba'in. Before I go and give you the update on the center remodeling, just will let you know our program for the rest of this week. We'll have the Arba'in Majlis tonight, and then our guest speaker, is coming here on Thursday night. So we'll have a program on Friday and on Saturday. Friday, we'll have a program at 8 o'clock with Maghrebain, and Saturday we'll begin with dinner at about 6:30. And the details are posted on our website, inshallah. If anybody wants to recite Marthiya, please talk to Brother Rasul or inshallah. The other announcement I'd like to make is that the city of Kirkland is doing a 25-year master plan. 25-year master plan, and they are looking for input from all the communities, all the people who either live in Kirkland, come to Kirkland, like Kirkland, love Kirkland, all those things, right? Doesn't matter whether you live here or don't live here. And to enable everybody to participate, They reached out to us, and they also translated the information in Arabic and in Farsi. So if you look at our bulletin board, you will see this notices in English and in Arabic and in Farsi. I told them to do Gujarati and Swahili and Russian and Korean, so they were limited budget, we can't do everything. I speak Farsi and Arabic, and so hopefully that everybody, even if you don't speak English, you're not fluent in English, if you have Arabic and Farsi, you'll be able to access it. There's also on the top of the board there, you will see a little kind of barcode there. They want input on human services. This is our city, so we have to kind of engage and participate and take part in the civic life. For example, this evening there was a meeting at 5:30, the city council meeting. I was there attending part of the meeting. We were talking about shutting down some streets downtown. So we got to be part of the community and give input when they ask for input. You've also probably noticed that Sister Marthiya is organizing back to school packs for families who cannot afford or less affluent. They need some help with the school materials, so that children, when they go to school, they got all the things they need: pens, backpacks, pencils, whatever they need. And we are working with MAPS MCRC to distribute to needy families. If there are needy families in our congregation, then please talk to Sister Marthiya. She will be able to help you out. And by the way, each pack is about $25. Costs about $25. We are collecting money to be able to cover for the expense. So if you are so inclined to help these children in need, please send money, write a check, put cash, or you can do a Zelle to accounts at iman.ishwaq.org. So now I'd like to actually move on to the next topic here. Sorry, this is they have the right focus there. We moved in the Iman community moved into this location in the November of 2004. So this November, it will be 19 years that we've been here. 4 years after we moved here, in March of 2008 and September, we remodeled the facility. Before this was a medical clinic. It was called the Lakeshore Clinic. The joke I like to make is the condition Muslims so sick to buy a clinic, right? A spiritual clinic. So here we are and remodeled this facility, and we took on a significant project at that time. This was completed in September, and we've been using this facility now for 15 years. Now, in the time we've used this facility, we've actually realized that there are a few needs that are not met. This is why we need to remodel. So what are the needs that are met? First of all, if you can see that there's not enough room here for youth and children, also for adults to have multi-purpose activities. You want to have recreational activities like basketball, pickleball, I guess is the thing in fashion right now, badminton, whatever. Or, inviting, have interfaith gatherings whereby you have sit-down meals. We don't have a banquet hall. Sit down and we invite people. Iman Center is open for prayers of Dhuhr and Maghrib. Unfortunately, when the people who are here every day, they travel, it's already open. So then the place is not open for prayer. If you look at our Google reviews, people leave nasty reviews. Hey, it's the mosque, it's never open, blah, 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 right? So one of the things we want to do is we want to have a 24/7 musalla. Right? So we'll be outside prayer place whereby it's open 24/7. People can come and pray, whether the center is open or not, sheltered area. This place will, as we grow, our needs grow. At some point, we may want to talk about having our own cemetery. We will need a caretaker. Caretaker for Iman will probably have to be somewhere in Kirkland. It will be very difficult to have this person be able to rent and be able to afford rent in Kirkland. So we're also kind of considering having a caretaker apartment on premise to be able to meet that. Plus, when you look at the center right now, it looks like a commercial building. Maybe it looks like a health center, right? More so than a religious place. So it'd be good to have some signage, some insignia outside the building that shows this is an Islamic place of worship. Right? And obviously, there might be other needs that we may have to be able to address. For example, ghusl khana. Do we need that or not? It depends if you want to have a cemetery. If there's going to be ghusl khana there, then we don't need to have a ghusl khana here. So So these are some of the things that we're going to think about. So basically, this is the activity, the planning activity is already started. As we mentioned in Eid al-Fitr, that we have an architect, and the architect now has come up with, we did a site survey of the plan of the site, and then we know how big the area is, what's possible, and we communicate with the architect what the needs we have. And based on our information, the architect has made a proposal on a master plan for this site, what we can do. So I will share with you. And by the way, if you entered today, you saw those pictures posted right across from the entrance hall in the back, right on the glass window there. So those are the detailed plans, which I'll show you right now, but you can follow up and see it later on. So this is really the option A. And let me show you what it means. This building here, from here to here is our current structure. What we want to do is add another building here. And we'll change the street access so that basically people will be able to come in, drop off people, go out, and then we cover disabled parking here. The underground parking being in its structure, and all the parking will be in the back. This area here will be the open 24/7 sauna, and this will be the multi-purpose hall here. As you can see, 65-70 square feet. So, once we build this one here, we can probably continue using this facility without disturbing our activities. But at some point, once we have done this, we'll focus on this part here. So there are two plans in the architect is proposing. This is option A. And from the street, the building will look something like this. This is the new structure, and this is the current structure, and whether we do this kind of dome or something else. Obviously, in the back here, there will be some garage door kind of things, and you can have an open area for children to play. And we can also probably do some play area over here in the front of the building. There will be adequate parking for the needs we see here according to the architect. And if we need more parking, we can probably double park over here and figure out something. So this is one of the options. The other option is this one here. And I don't know if you can see the difference. This is option A. Option B. Can you see the difference? Option A, option B. In option A, they have a dome in the front of the building, meaning where I'm standing right now, there'll be a dome. Okay? And the street frontage will look like this. In option B, the dome will be right in the middle, and this post will go away, but the size will remain the same. So these are the two options, that are being considered. Now, when you look at on the street level, this will be how it will look like from different angles. Aerial angle, like this, option A. You can see it's a green dome, looks good. There'll be 14 of these glass planes, and this planes here will be 14. Right? There might be 5 pillars over there. So it's interesting kind of things that are going on.
Sorry, where is the main dome?
Well, this is how when you are facing I'm on Straight Street, I'm facing the building. This is what it looks like. Okay? And if I'm Straight Street, this is Straight Street here. This is Fifth Avenue. This is Straight Street. Straight Street. Straight Street here. So this is option A, and you can see I'll flip between the two diagrams. You'll see very small differences here. Option A. You see how that is? Can you see how the dome is moving? This is option A. It gives them more space. Option B. Anyway, I think you'll be able to look at this in more detail outside. They're posted at your convenience. So where are we going now? Here are the next steps. We invite everybody here to look at the plans and give feedback. And then based on the feedback, we'll revise. Number one. And then the feedback, if you have, can be sent to remodel@iman-wada.org. Don't send it tonight, send it tomorrow, because I need to set up the email address. I'm not set it up yet. So tomorrow, starting tomorrow, send it remodel@iman-wada.org. And then after this is done, then we will prepare an application, pre-design application for the city. And when the application is prepared, we'll get approval from the board, Iman board, to apply. Then we'll start the application process with the city. Now, this is a pretty sizable project, right? And it's not like, this structure right now, what we have today is about 7,000 feet this way and 6,000 feet down below, right? So it's 13,000, and we're adding another 7,000. So altogether, we'll probably have 20,000 square feet of space. It's not going to be a small project. It's going to take a few years. It's going to take a lot of work. But I think the exciting thing is that everybody has got a chance to contribute, and we can start our next phase of our community's development here. Our vision is to be spiritually vibrant. Right now, we're not so spiritually vibrant because in namaz, there are only a couple of people coming in for and Maghrib. Inshallah, people will grow. But I judge that 30 years ago there'll be 0 people. At least now we've got 2, right? So it's a big improvement. And inshallah, people. So the other is caring and sharing to people in need. Yesterday, for example, I had a chance to visit Sister Anisa. I've not seen her for a long time. I hope some of you are able to go visit her. She cannot move because she's not active after COVID. So her muscles are weak, but she's only 1 block away. So if you happen to be in the area, she was saying she would love to come here on Thursdays. If somebody wants to help out, bring her by car and take her back. It'd be a very good thing to do. So all of us, we can care, we can share what we have, inshallah. Everybody can help. If you have a car and if you have a heart, you can bring Sister Anisa. There may be other people too. Who knows? One day we will also be needing those facilities also. So this is where we are. I would like to now introduce our speaker, Dr. Sheikh Imran Panjwani. He is a lawyer. He works on Islamic law as well as secular law in the UK. He studied Australia. He studied in England and Middle East. He did House of Studies at Ahmed University. And his comment, a lot of people have looked at his work. I already posted his bio on the announcement. And today he's going to talk about challenges of Prophet Muhammad Imam Hussain al-Islam. What are the Quranic parallels, the doctrinal and the philosophical implications of these two things. So with this, please welcome him, Salaat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب صلوات جزاك الله Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers and sisters. My condolences to all of you on this night of Arba'een and in the remembrance of al-Husayn ibn Ali alayhi salam, his beloved family and his companions. And it's an honor to be with you again and remember the family of Rasulullah, peace be upon him. The purpose of this lecture is for us, inshallah, to deeply understand the connection between al-Husayn ibn Ali alayhi salam's stand in Karbala to the Prophet's own stand in his time against Abu Sufyan, jazakallah, and what reform the Prophet was trying to bring to his society through the Qur'an. And I'm humbly sharing this with you because perhaps as Shia Muslims, it's easy for us to give that great status to al-Husayn ibn Ali alayhi salam because Shiism stems from following and remembering Ali alayhi salam as opposed to the other companions of Rasulullah after his death in terms of leadership and in terms of sunnah, in terms of character. But at the same time, this title is also for all Muslims. Do all Muslims universally and resoundingly remember the stand of al-Husayn ibn Ali alayhi salam as they may do with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? I was in Jordan for a few months. I was doing some refugee work, and by grace of Allah, I was able to visit Palestine as well and go to Masjid al-Aqsa, a very blessed place. I think after Makkah and Medina, or in that same line, and according to a hadith, the whole earth of Masjid al-Aqsa is full of barakah, because all the prophets walked there or prayed there, or Prophet Zakaria visited Maryam salamullahi alayha. Is a place, of course, of Mi'raj of Rasulullah. There's a lots of maqamat there. But of course, as you all are aware, that the Palestinians are greatly oppressed. And I saw that for myself when I visited the refugee camps. They only get water twice a day, and the way they're harassed and these things. I mean, that requires another lecture. The reason to share this with you is because when I was traveling in and around the region, and I was there for Ashura, by the way, when I was visiting the various masajid and shuyukh giving khutbah, of course, with respect to all Muslims, there was barely a mention of al-Husayn alayhi salam stand and his stand in Karbala and what it meant to Muslims and Islam. And we should all, of course, be brothers and sisters in faith, no doubt. This is not a kind of sectarian point. But the fact that perhaps there's a gap in Muslim history or a different way of perceiving Hussein alayhi salam, as if he's disconnected from Rasulullah, as if his stand is an event in history which he did against certain rulers or a ruler, but that's of a different time period, a different connection to Rasulullah's own time in history. It's as if they are two separate events. This is my humble experience, just kind of visiting in and around the region, living with our fellow Muslim brothers, and perhaps I felt that there needs to be more of a recognition of exactly what Hussein stood for through the Qur'an. Not through just the lens of sectarianism, not through the lens of Shia and Sunni, forget all that. Through the lens of the Quran itself and the words of Rasulullah himself. Salawat, please. And the second point, it's a reflection for us. We may cry over Hussein ibn alayhi salam. We may do Matam. We may do Azadari. And it's very easy sometimes to forget what exactly were the principles Imam Hussein stood for, apart from generally saying it's justice and fighting injustice and opposing a corrupt ruler. What doctrines did he stand for? What particular principles did he stand for? Like in any subject we study or our children go to school, they learn the principles of English language or the principles of maths. Well, what exactly are the principles of Karbala? Since a young age, even teenagers in my early 20s, whenever I used to go to masajid, yes, alhamdulillah, we used to commemorate, but those fundamental questions were never answered for me. And to this day, I still feel they're not always answered for me. So to the extent that when I did visit Palestine and I saw the oppression, my first thought was that when I came back to the UK, how much infighting Muslims do over sects, over doctrines, over who is preaching what on the mimbar. So much infighting. You get WhatsApp messages, somebody said this, somebody said that, and this community is not united with this one and whatever. And I just said, Muslims are being oppressed and killed and occupied in Palestine. And I saw some atrocious things, to the extent, for example, that when I was visiting a refugee camp, the guide told us that there was a fence there to get through the camp, and a mother with a baby needed medical help. And the doctor was not allowed to go inside the refugee camp and had to give an injection, I think, to the young child or the baby through a metal fence. Or I can give many examples that if you go through certain checkpoints, there are Israeli soldiers there with guns, big rifles up to their head. And even me, for example, I have, of course, British passport. They would still come in the van and harass you and speak to you, what are you doing here? Who are you? Are you Muslim this? Well, all these questions are there, and you're just going through certain checkpoints either to get to Masjid al-Aqsa or to travel outside of Jerusalem. And okay, this is me as British person. The Palestinians I met, I had a lot of conversations with them. many of them cannot even visit Masjid al-Aqsa, even though they live around the masjid. I mean, there are so many things. This requires another lecture. But I'm sharing this with you because that's the reality of a situation. It's the most occupied territory in the world, completely segregated. And yet when I see, well, okay, we do Muharram and we do Arba'een, well, what are these principles that Hussein stood for, and are we putting into effect in society as privileged people living in the UK and the West and living comfortably? Do we actually take stock of this message and implement it practically, trying to stop internal division and trying to help our fellow Muslims? So this is not a sectarian message. This is why I began with the words that al-Husayn al-Islam stand is a universal event for Muslims, or it should be. Salawat, please. I don't know if you can put the PowerPoint. I think I gave it. Shukran. Thanks. Yeah. Could you go to the next slide, please? Okay. Sorry, I thought the PowerPoint would be bigger. Don't worry about it, okay? The first slide, you could just read the title, forget the rest. Don't worry. So it's an easy lesson, okay? The Qur'an and the Prophet as the foundation of al-Husayn alayhi salam stand, okay? I'm beginning with this slide because these words of Hussein alayhi salam are from Maqtal al-Husayn by Khwarizmi, one of the maqatil that we have. And it is also reported in Tariq Tabari. What does al-Husayn alayhi salam say to the tribes in Basra known as the Akhmas? The Akhmas are the 5 tribes who govern the divisions within Basra, okay? So you can imagine that the Prophet, during the Prophet's time, what was the biggest problem he had? Trying to stop tribal division and try to bring tribal unity. Look at what is reported in some of our earliest historical sources. Al-Husayn alayhi salam, as he's traveling and as he is trying to convey the message of the Qur'an, he is speaking to different tribes in Basra and in around the region. So first, it's not just, why didn't people follow Hussein alayhi salam? We sometimes ask that, why didn't people stand for Hussein alayhi salam? Because there were different tribes. There was different understandings of who Hussein was. There was different understandings. Well, if Yazid is the ruler, well, who is this Hussein? What is he trying to bring? Okay, we may acknowledge he's the grandson of Rasulullah, but we have a ruler, Yazid ibn Muawiyah. So you can imagine that the same kind of divisions we have today in society between different politicians and why we should support them or not support them, same kind of thinking is there in that society, to put it very simply. And let me just read this out to you, okay? He says, and this was, some sources say that al-Husayn Islam wrote this to the tribes of Basra, and others say that he spoke this, okay? I'll just go from the middle of the paragraph. He says, أما بعد فإن الله استفى محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم اللهم صل على محمد من خلقه وأكرمه بنبوته واختاره لرسالته ثم قبضه إليها وقد نصح لعباده وبلغ من أرسل به صلى الله عليه وآله وكنا أهله وأولياؤه وورثته وأحق الناس بمقامه في الناس. And in the English, if you can read that middle portion in English, if you can see it, what does al-Husayn say? Look at how he's approaching the message. I mean, we say the message of Karbala, but look how he's approaching the message of the Quran and Rasulullah. He says, now indeed, Allah chose Muhammad, may Allah send blessings and peace be upon him and his family, from his creation and honored him with his apostleship or nabuwah and chose him for his message. So he's starting with the Prophet. Hussein al-Islam is going back to the Prophet, trying to establish the link that people had forgotten, and what I saw in Jordan and in around the region, and I think most of the world, that people can forget that Hussein is the Prophet, is resembling the Prophet, is connected with the Prophet, is continuing the line of Rasulullah in his message, principles and character. Then, what does he say? Then he took him, qabada. Qabada means to snatch or take away, but in this context it means Allah returned the Prophet to him, that is, death of the Prophet. Allah took him, so the Prophet's life has ended. Then he took him towards himself. He had advised his servants and conveyed what he was sent with. The Prophet did his job. He conveyed the message of the Qur'an. Now that time has ended, right? So look how Husayn is expressing the message of Rasulullah. You know, we love the Prophet and we love Ahlul Bayt, of course. But Husayn is a realist. He says, look, this time of Rasulullah has finished. He has returned to Allah. The Prophet is no more. But I am here, that is Husayn alayhi salam, and I'm reminding you of these principles that you have forgotten with his death. That's the subtitles of this letter or this speech. And then Husayn alayhi salam continues. He says that, and we are his family, associates and heirs, and we have been the most rightful of people over his position. So the exclusive claim over people is with us. So now Husayn alayhi salam is establishing his right to lead the society based on his good character as opposed to the corrupt character of Yazid. And then we find these principles which I talked of. Well, what are these principles of Karbala? Now, sorry, I can't see when I was talking to Irfan, I can't see when I put the glasses on my phone. So when I was a teenager, I used to ask, well, okay, everybody says, or every person from the member says, Husayn is for justice. We fight we fight for the oppressed. Okay, this is too general. This is too general for me. What exactly was Husayn alayhi salam trying to bring in the society? That's what I want to know. That's what my children want to know. That's what a thinking person and a thinking child wants to know. Why should a child follow Husayn alayhi salam as opposed to Gandhi, as opposed to Malcolm X, as opposed to any reformer? And of course, we know some of these reformers were inspired by Husayn alayhi salam. But a young child with YouTube and social media and Facebook has all the options in the world. So why come to Majalis? Why come for Ashura? Why come for Arba'in? Very valid question by any young person. So we should give them an intellectual answer, right? Husayn alayhi salam gives an intellectual answer. He says that we enjoined or we accepted the position in the society, that is of Yazid. That means we acquiesced at that time, okay, Yazid is the ruler. But what did we see? What did Husayn alayhi salam see that made him stand against Yazid ibn Muawiyah? He says, we the Ahlul Bayt disliked division, exactly what I mentioned at the start of the lecture, which we see between Shia and Sunni, among Sunni, etc. And we loved public welfare. Two very important things. The society at Yazid's time was a divided society. Tribes, a corrupt ruler, poor people and orphans being ignored, and a lack of unity amongst Muslims themselves, which we saw since the time of al-Hasan alayhi salam. In Kitab al-Irshad by Shaykh al-Mufid rahmatullahi alayhi, in one of the khutbahs that al-Hasan gives, he addresses the people and says, this is not the time to fight. I'm just summarizing, okay? Because there were some people in the camp of al-Husayn alayhi salam that wanted to rise up against Muawiyah. And others were not sure. Others said, no, we should not fight. That resulted in the sulh or the pact between al-Hasan and Muawiyah. Now, when al-Hasan finished the khutbah, there was infighting amongst the people in the crowd, and some of them attacked al-Hasan alayhi salam. Now that you will find in the chapter or biography of al-Hasan alayhi salam in Kitab al-Irshad, okay? That was the time of al-Hasan. So look at the division at the time of al-Hasan, which continued during the time of al-Husayn alayhi salam. That's why the people of Kufa left al-Husayn to die on the plains of Karbala. And who were the people of Kufa? Can we call them Shia? Possibly. But as a minimum, we can definitely say that they recognize that al-Husayn is the grandson of Rasulullah, the son of Ali alayhi salam, and that his character and, if you like, sunnah or adab should be followed. They knew that 100%. That we have as a minimum certainty. Now, whatever title you want to give those people is up to you, up to historians. But as a minimum, the whole reason why they were in communication with al-Husayn al-Islam through letters is because they recognized his position in the society and the fact that he was the grandson of Rasulullah, yet they left him to die on the plains of Karbala. So something was horribly wrong in that society, that they did not understand the very principles of Islam or the Qur'an, as is the focus of this lecture, which Rasulullah left before his death. Salawat, please. Can we go to the next slide, please? So that you can hopefully read, you can see yourself that in another remark that al-Husayn gives on his way to Karbala, you can see that he says, "O people, indeed the Prophet of Allah, may Allah bless him and his progeny, said, anybody who sees a tyrant ruler who treats the haram prescribed by Allah as halal, infringes his covenant in defiance to the sunnah of the Prophet of Allah, and treats the servants of Allah by means of committing sins and enmity," which is what Yazid was doing, "and they do not revolt against him in words or deeds, Allah has every right to drive them to their abode," that is the hellfire. Now, very serious remarks by al-Husayn al-Islam. We sometimes think, at least I used to think, that all the prophets and imams, they were so patient, they were so calm during matters of strife and distress. There was no anger in them. That's false. This is anger. This is the anger of Hussein towards his own people and towards the society for not being just and standing up to a corrupt ruler. Look how courageous al-Husayn is. So to answer the question that young people ask, or my own children ask, well, al-Husayn, as one person or with a few companions around him, few family members, stands up to a corrupt ruler in a time where he didn't have an army, where there was no military aircrafts or anything like that. It was a man in a desert saying these words to people. This is one reason why young people should follow us, al-Husayn al-Islam, who stood by his words and practiced what he preached. In some of the reformers, I mean, you can look at Malcolm X, you can look at Martin Luther King, if you read some of their biographies, they did other things in private that was rather immoral, right? Okay, Allah forgive everybody, no problem. But al-Husayn al-Islam did not do anything immoral in private. What he said, he preached, what he said, he practiced in private as well. So you can already see that the principles of al-Husayn al-Islam, we have three: disliking division, making sure that there is social welfare in society, and three, standing up to tyrant rulers, whether in words or deeds. Still very difficult to do. And just to give you one simple example, when I was going through the border from Jordan to Palestine, it's very normal to get a bit harassed and people ask you questions. And when I went actually for research and to help in whatever small way I could the Palestinians through various means. But I didn't say that, because if I had said that, I would be turned back to Jordan. One of my friends who was going there said that he was an intern at some institute, and he gave a bit too much detail. He was turned back. Now, he was American, and he had normal passport and all that, and educational qualifications, everything normal, but he was turned back because they don't want anyone. The Israeli government doesn't want anyone to say anything, whether through writing a report, whether through contacting Palestinians, whether through speaking with them through a fence. They don't want any contact at all with them and for us to write about their plight. That's why only more recently Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have done very comprehensive reports calling the actions of Israelis towards Palestinians, apartheid. That's I've only seen in recent years. But before that, or maybe before 10 years ago, I don't think this was very common. But the last 5 years, I have seen a shift within human rights organizations to use these words. But I'm just giving you a real life experience that it is very difficult to say things with words or deeds in controlled areas, in occupied areas, because you will be turned back. Salawat, please. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thanks. This is just two examples. I'm not going to go through it completely. Al-Husayn al-Islam, throughout his journey to Karbala, used verses of the Qur'an for several reasons. One, to justify his action, that he was not disconnected from the Qur'an, that he was not an isolated figure apart from Rasulullah. And two, to give himself confidence and trust and faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through his struggles. So in the first verse that you see, I'll just read a portion of it. He says towards the end, this is Surah Al-Yunus, verse 71, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. He says to the people, this is in his first speech on Ashura, this is where he uses these verses of the Quran. So conspire together along with your partners, leaving nothing vague in your plan, then carry it out against me without giving me any respite. He's issuing a challenge to the people in Karbala that do what you want, and as a challenge to the enemies, do what you want with me. You may devise as you wish, but Allah is the best of planners. So he is increasing his confidence in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is proven in the next verse, Surah Al-A'raf, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna waliyallahu alladhi nazzala al-kitab wa huwa yatawalla as-salihin. My guardian is indeed Allah, who sent down the book, and he takes care of the righteous. For me, the marvelous aspect of Husayn al-Islam is not the physical aspect. It's not that he stood alone and took the arrows. I think that's, I can't say this, but the physical is the easier thing to do rather than the mental. If somebody gives up mentally and loses faith, then they've lost the battle generally. Like we tell our children, you know, be confident in your exam. Be confident when you go to class. The first thing is the psychological element. This is the psychology of Al-Husayn al-Islam. He has this trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he is going to take care of the righteous. And I think that is very difficult. And I think it developed over this journey in Karbala. It wasn't something instantaneous. He used these verses to comfort himself. He used these verses to increase his iman. He used these verses to increase his trust. How can any human being simply automatically be like this armor and say, right, I'm now on this journey of Karbala, whatever happens, I'm not going to cry, I'm not going to lose any trust, I'm not going to feel any pain, I'm not going to be weak. This is totally non-human. Al-Husayn Islam is a human being developing his trust, developing his sabr during this period until Ashura, where he declares, my guardian is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at this confidence that now culminates on the night of Ashura. Salawat, please. Can we go to the next slide, please? Next slide. Okay. Do I have 10 minutes, or how much time do I have? Or 10? Oh, you tell me when you're tired. No, really. It's Friday night as well, so. Are you okay for 10 minutes? But not more than 10 minutes. Okay, so that means 7, 8 minutes, right? Okay, yeah, okay. Oh dear. Okay. Let me just give this example. Okay, in the time of the Prophet. Okay, maybe we'll do this in another lecture, inshallah. In the time of the Prophet, we had similar characters to Yazid ibn Muawiyah, like Walid ibn Mughira. Now, of course, Yazid ibn Muawiyah was the worst, arguably, and you can see this in many of the reports of historians. These verses that you see, I'll just read out a few of them. These verses are from Surah Al-Mudaththir. And the context or the sababun nuzul of these verses, according to both Shia and Sunni Mufassirin, is that Walid ibn Mughira and his tribe was harassing Rasulullah and trying to stop Rasulullah's message. They were harassing him verbally and physically. The first verse that you see, and I'll just deal with that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to Rasulullah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Dharni wa man khalaqtu wahida. Leave me and him whom I created alone. So just remember that. Leave me and him whom I created alone. Okay? The person who Allah creates is Walid ibn Mughira. Okay? This is according to all the tafsir. So the sababun nuzul is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is intimately aware that Rasulullah is feeling grief and distress. And he wants to do something against Walid ibn Mughira. Okay, please understand this. Rasulullah is feeling distressed, he's feeling angry. He wants to let out his emotion and say, this Walid ibn Mughira is harassing me. Okay? But Allah reveals this verse. Look at the language. Leave me. This is a command to the Prophet. Leave me. That means leave me, that is, leave Allah to do what He wants. Leave me and the one who I created alone. Look how beautiful this verse is. Allah is telling the Prophet, be patient. Don't react. Something we all have to learn. Myself, yourself. Don't react. Leave me, that is Allah, to deal with this person, Walid ibn Mughira. Okay? Who was Walid ibn Mughira? The tribal chief of the Makhzum tribe. He was rich, according to Tafsir al-Safi by Allama Faid al-Qashani. He had 7 children and he had an esteemed position in the society. Okay? He felt he could do whatever he wanted, to the extent that in Majm al-Bayan you will find this qissa there that in fact, I'll show you this. You might find it interesting. Can you go to the next slide, please? Next slide. Anybody there? No. Okay, I'll just read it out. It's okay. Yeah, you can see the first line. Walid ibn Mughira, he was so jealous of Rasulullah. This is what he said. Wallahu laqad sami'tu min Muhammadin anifan kalaman ma huwa min kalam al-anasi wala min kalam al-jinni. This is actually a line from the historical report of what happened in these verses. He says, by Allah, he says that indeed I heard from Muhammad a speech that is above, a speech that precedes, a speech that is superior, if you like, that is not from the speech of human beings and that is not from the speech of jinn. Now, Walid, he was an esteemed poet, right? So one, he was jealous of Rasulullah's position, as Yazid was jealous of Husayn's position and his lineage, and the fact that he did have followers, the fact that people did recognize him as the grandson of Rasulullah. And 2, Walid ibn Mughira and others wanted to stop Rasulullah. And in Majm al-Bayan it is reported that when Walid said this, and people heard this, they said, oh, Walid ibn Mughira, you're actually complimenting Rasulullah, you're complimenting his speech, how can this be? You're an esteemed poet. And so they all put pressure on Walid ibn Mughira to try to stop Rasulullah. And they had various plans. So they said, oh Walid, why don't you call him Majnoon? This is where this is why in the verses of the Qur'an are very important, because they reflect the historical circumstance of Rasulullah. He said, Walid, call Rasulullah Majnoon, call him crazy. And then he said, no, we can't call him crazy because people know he's not crazy, he's a trader. And they believe he is sane and he does trade. Nobody would believe he's crazy. Okay, call him Kahin. That means call him a soothsayer, fortune teller. Walid says, no, he doesn't have the attributes of a fortune teller. Okay, call him Sha'ir, call him a poet. No, if you call him a poet, then you'll remove my status as a poet. And this language is not poetry. The language of the Quran is above poetry, right? they conspired against Rasulullah to such an exacting degree that Rasulullah felt so much distress inside. That's why this verse was revealed. Now, we don't often hear this. I mean, I'm just summarizing several tafasir for you. I wanted to go into detail. I can't do that here, okay? The next slide is grammatical analysis. I'm not doing that on a Friday night. I won't be invited again, okay? But I'm just sharing with you that this inner distress that the prophets and Imams felt, that's the reason for these verses. That's why the Prophet had an intimate relationship with Allah, and that's why al-Husayn was able to say, Inna waliyallah, indeed Allah is my guardian, because he could only trust Allah. Only Allah, he felt, could hear his feelings. Allah is Samin Alim. That's what makes al-Husayn great, beyond all of the physical sacrifice, of course. Salawat, please. Can we go to the next slide, please? Next slide. I'm going to end on these two slides, okay? So, this is the conclusion, okay? From these verses, what do we find? That God is the all-powerful, independent creator. Allah is the one who creates Walid alone, okay? And secondly, God responds to good and bad actions of his creation. I wanted to go into this, but I'm just summarizing. That means God truly does respond to the Prophet and al-Husayn alayhi salam. God is ever present within his creation, affecting our actions. Now, I don't know how to answer this, so I'm leaving you with this, is that at the end of his life, Walid ibn Mughira lost his wealth, 3 of his children submitted to Islam, and he lost his position in society. Yazid, when he killed Husayn alayhi salam, he was still in power, but he died shortly after. I think in his late 30s he died, and within 60 years the Umayyad government collapsed. I'm still trying to answer this, that how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala affect actions of creation to the extent that let's say I do something unjust to you, and sometimes we might say that injustice comes back to me. How does that happen? I'm always trying to understand this. Is it through angels? Is it through cause and effect? Is it through karma? Is it through I'm creating depressed feelings for myself and something's going to come back to me because I have a negative state? These are all psychological cosmic questions. But I'm posing this with you because this is what happened to Walid ibn Mughira. Rasulullah did not lift a finger, and Walid ibn Mughira lost his position, and 3 of his children submitted to Islam. You'll find this in Tafsir Safi, okay? So there is clearly something that Allah does through the creation, which means Allah is ever present in his creation. And I'm always trying to understand these verses, that how does Allah work through the creation, and how did the Prophet and Husayn Islam trust Allah to accept their fate? To accept their fate, that even being alone on the plains of Karbala, people abandoning him, he still has the strength to stand up to Yazid ibn Muawiyah. Salawat. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. My dear brothers and sisters, the night of Arba'een is the night of remembrance of Husayn alayhi salam, the grief of Husayn, the distress of Husayn, as I explained, and how they were able to trust Allah in such torrid circumstances. To the extent that in Ziyaratun Nahiya, it is reported, or this is the way that the 12th Imam gives salams to the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt, and to the Ashab of Husayn and the family of Husayn. He says, As-salamu ala dima'is sa'ilat. Peace be upon you, O the flowing blood. He doesn't just name Husayn. We say, As-salamu alayka ya Husayn, we may say. He says, peace be upon you to the flowing blood. As-salamu ala al-a'dha'il muqatta'at. Peace be upon you to the cut, to the separated bones. Assalamu ala ru'usil mushalat. Peace be upon you to the raised heads, because Husayn's head was cut and raised and then carried through Kufa and Sham. This was the fate of Husayn alayhi salam. Yet he had the patience and trust to say, Inna waliyallah, Assalamu ala niswatil barizat. Peace be upon you, O the exposed women, because the women were exposed and in chains. If we are to remember Karbala, we should remember not just the names and those who sacrificed their lives, but their blood, their body, their bodily parts, their heads, and their clothes, because they were drenched in blood. For what? For the sake of unity at a time where we still experience disunity in the Ummah. Our eighth Imam alayhi salam says, as reported in Ulul Akhbar Rida, he says, Ya ibn al-Shabib, in kunta bakiyan li shay'in fa'abki lil Husayn فَإِنَّهُ ذُبِحَ كَمَا يُذْبَحُ الْكَبْشِ. Says, oh Ibn Shabib, if you want to cry for anything, then just cry for Husayn. Indeed, he was slaughtered like a sheep is slaughtered. For who was Husayn? Husayn alayhi salam was the man, the innocent man, the righteous man, who stood alone on the plains of Karbala, leaving his daughter Sakina, salamullahi alayha, leaving his son Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, leaving the women of the tent. Imagine a daughter that cannot hug her father anymore, and the last touch of Husayn's daughter to his armor, saying, Father, Father, don't go. Don't leave us. Imagine the feelings of Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, who is ill in the tent and cannot defend his father because of his frailty. How would a son feel that he cannot protect his father? Imagine Zainab salamullahi alayha losing her sons, now losing her brother, and yet she has to be the commander in the tent. She has to keep the morale of the tent. This is how Husayn left his tent. And when he went on the plains of Karbala, this is why the eighth Imam says, فَإِنَّهُ ذُبِحَ كَمَا يُذْبَحُ الْكَبْشِ. He was slaughtered like a sheep is slaughtered. Because just as a sheep has that beautiful, innocent white wool, and that wool should not be stained and has not harmed any other animal, then Husayn alayhi salam was like a sheep being surrounded and his wool being cut and stained with his own blood, and the animal being cut, his head being cut as if he's being slaughtered to be eaten. This is how the descendants of Husayn remember the great-great-great-grandfather Husayn, that today the night of Arba'een is the remembrance of not just the names, but their bodily parts and also what they stood for. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Rabbana la taj'alna ma'a qawmi dhalimin. O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you to please do not make us like the unjust people. O Allah, we ask you to please bring unity in society. We ask you to give us strength to help those who are oppressed. O Allah, please help us reform our actions and character in the way of Husayn alayhi salam, and please help us understand your beautiful book, the Qur'an, inshallah. Surah Al-Fatiha, please.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Hussein,
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein.
سادات کربلا سادات کربلا چہلم کو کربلا میں جب آئی وہ بیویاں سادات کربلا ہر بیوی کر رہی تھی کچھ اس طرح سے گریاں سادات کربلا سادات کربلا چہلم کو کربلا میں جب آئی وہ بیویاں سادات کربلا سادات کربلا چہلم کو کربلا میں جب آئی وہ بیویاں سادات کربلا سادات کربلا کچھ بیویاں یہاں ہے کچھ بیویاں وہاں کرتی ہوئی فغاں کرتی ہوئی فغاں بکھری ہوئی تھی مقتل سرور میں جا بجا سادات کربلا سادات کربلا چہلم کو کربلا میں جب آئی وہ بیویاں سادات کربلا سادات کربلا ایک بی دشت خونی میں جاتی ہے نہر پر کہتی بچشم تر کہتی بچشم تر عباس دینے آئی ہوں پرسا سکینہ کا سادات کربلا سادات کربلا چہلم کو کربلا میں جب آئی وہ بیویاں سادات کربلا سادات کربلا گھٹ گھٹ کے لاڈلی تیری زندہ میں مر گئی تربت نہیں بنی تربت نہیں بنی رے بھیا وہ قید سے نہ ہوئی مر کے بھی جدا سادات کربلا سادات کربلا چہلم کو کربلا میں جب آئی وہ بیویاں سادات کربلا سادات کربلا اکبر کی قبر پر یوں ہوئی لیلا داغر دیکھا نہ سال بھر دیکھا نہ سال بھر آئی ہوں قید शाम से अब हो के मेरे यहाँ सादात करबला सादात करबला चाहे तुमको करबला में जब आई वो बीबिया सादात करबला सादात करबला बानो ये बैन करती थी ये मेरे बेजुबान माँ ढूंढे अब कहाँ माँ ढूंढे अब कहाँ रे बतला दे है कहाँ मेरा असगर है करबला सादात करबला सादात करबला चहलुम को करबला में जवानी वो बीबिया सादात करबला सादात करबला चहलुम को करबला में जवानी वो बीबिया सादात करबला Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein.
Breath and every step is for you, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. My eyes weep for you, Hussein. My heart beats for you, Hussein. Every breath and every step is for you, Ya Hussein. Ya Abdullah, Ya Shaheed Karbala, Ya Abdullah, Ya Shaheed Karbala, Ya Hussein. Your name gives meaning to life. It means faith and sacrifice. It gives hope to our cries. It gives life to the darkest night. It distinguishes truth from lies. It makes revolutions arise. It makes revolutions arise. Ya Abdullah, Ya Shaheed Karbala, Ya Abdullah, Ya Shaheed Karbala. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Savior of the Deen of Islam. He is my third holy Imam. Mawla, you are my Imam. Your blood saved the holy Qur'an. Through your breath we have the Adhan. Upon you we send our salam. Upon you we send our salam.
Abdullah, Ya Shaheed Karbala, Ya Abdullah, Ya Shaheed Karbala. Hussein, Ya Hussein.
It's a stone, millions walk towards your dome, leaving Husayn runs in the soul.
Ya Şehide Kerbela, Ya Lillah, Ya Şehide Kerbela, Ya Hüseyin, Ya Hüseyin.
Chest of the enemy, Akbar. The neck of the enemy, Asfar. The covered arms of your brother. The ladies' chants were all done forever. We promise we'll never forget. We promise we'll never
Allah, Ya Şehide Kerbela, Ya Ya Şehide Kerbela, Ya Hüseyin, Ya Hüseyin.
We will never stop to mourn. The days of thirst far from home. Your injured body they found. It was shrouded by arrows. Those without weapons through stones. The horses hooves crush your bones. The horses hooves crush your bones. My eyes weep for you, Hussein. My heart beats for you, Hussein. Every breath and every step is for you, Ya Hussein. Ya Allah.
Abdullah, Ya Şehide Kerbela, Abdullah, Ya Şehide Kerbela, Ya Hüseyin, Ya Hüseyin.
The only prayer of mine as I am leaving this life. Slowly as I close my eyes and I breathe for the final time. You are there, Mawla, by my side. I will meet death with a smile. I will meet death with a smile. Ya Allah.
Abdullah, Ya Şehide Kerbela, Ya Abdullah, Ya Şehide Kerbela, Ya Hüseyin, Ya Hüseyin.
Ya Hussein.
Ya Hüseyin.
Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein.
Ya Hüseyin.
Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein.
Hussein,
Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein.
Hussein,
Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein.
Hussein,
Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein.
زینب آمده برای تو دو صد درد دل و خاطر دارم دلا تو گرفت از دل من صبر و قرار دل از مهر تو ای شاه شهید نبریدم به خاک تو عجیب است که من زنده رسیدم کنار سر تو بودم و هم یتیمان بعد تو برادر به جز از حسن ندیدم رگو به خانه ها زدن آهن تو ها 40 شب شده چشمان تن 40 شب شده زینب به لبش آب ندیده نخواهد با من ایدو بفیه اینا با من سرای تو 200 دل و خاطر دارم فراغت تو گرفته از دل من فرار نگویم که چه آورده اسارت به سر من حقیقت که شده قاتل تو سفر من بخم سرخ و دلم تنم جراح شکستم و من هجران تو عشق کمرم زینبن میری و کبود زمین فتاد در میان بود 40 شب شده چشمان ترم آب ندیده 40 شب شده زینب به لبش آب ندیده آن خواهد لب آمده ببینید زینب آمده برای تو 200 دل و خاطر دارم فراق تو گرفت دل من فرار زدام تو پریشانم و بیمارم و مضطر ببین بی سر و سامانی من با تو برادر ببین پیر شدم در سفر کوفه و در شام ببین قامت زینب شده جون قامت مادر قرار تو دختر تو بود خانه تو خواهر تو بود 40 شب شده چشمان ترم ندیده 40 شب شده زینب به لبش ندیده خواهرم در لبا دید و ببین زینب آمده برای تو 200 دل و خاطر دارم فراق تو گرفته از دل من قرار
نشود ناطق ایلال به هنگام ممات هر زبانی که فرستد به محمد صلوات
اللهم صل علی
السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي السلام عليك يا حسن السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بنا عليكم مني جميعا أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل ولا جعله الله آخر الأحد مني زيادة السلام على الحسين
وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين
السلام على ولي الله وحبيبه السلام على خليل الله ونجيه السلام على صفي الله وابن صفيه السلام على الحسين المظلوم السلام على صير الكربات وقتيل العبرات اللهم إني أشهد أنه وليك وابن وليك وصفيك وابن صفيك فائز بكرامة أكرمته بالشهادة وحموته بالسعادة واجتبيته بطيب الولادة وجعلته سيدا من الصالحين وقائدا من القادة وزائدا من الزاد وأعطيته مواريث الأنبياء وجعلته حجة على خلقك من الأوصياء فأقبل بالدعاء ومنع النصر وبذل محجته فيك يستنقذ عبادك من الجهالة يستنقذ عبادك من الجهالة وحيرة الضلالة وقد توازر عليه من مرته وضاحته بالأرض العدل وشرى آخرته بالثمن اليسير وترس وتردى في هواه وأسخطك وأسخط نفسك وأعطى من عبادك أهل الشقاق والنفاق وحملة الأوزار المستوجبين النار وجاهدهم فيك صابرا محتسبا حتى سفك في طاعتك بها حريم اللهم فلعنهم لعنا وبيلا وعذبهم عذابا عليما السلام عليك يا ابن الرسول السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الأوصياء أشهد أنك أمين الله وأمين عشت سعيد ومضيت حميدا ومت فقيدا مظلوما شهيدا وأشهد أن الله من وحدك ومحلك من خذلك ومعذب من قتلك وأشهد أنك وفيت بأحد وجاهدت في سبيله حتى أتاك اليقين ولعن الله من قتلك ولعن الله من ظلمك ولعن الله أمة سميت ذلك فرضيا اللهم إني أشهدك أني ولي لمن قال وعدو لمن عبد بأبي أنت وأمي يا ابن رسول الله أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الإسلام بالشام والأرحام المطهرة لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك الأئمات من بابها وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المسلمين ومعقل المؤمنين وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرزي الهادي وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا وأشهد أني بكم مؤمن وبيا بكم مؤمن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي وقلبي لقلبكم سن وأمري لأمركم وصوتي لكم وعدة حتى يأذن الله لكم ومعكم لا مع عدوكم صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وأجسادكم وشاهدكم وغائبكم وظاهركم وباطنكم آمين رب العالمين. السلام عليكم يا ساداتي وموالي جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام عليك وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين علي بن الحسين ومحمد وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان. الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. السلام عليك يا إمامي وإمام الإنس والجان. أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك رحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن. اللهم كن لوليك حجة الناس صلواتك عليه وعلى في هذه الساعة في كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا ونصرا.
يا الله يا الله
تسكنه وزكاه وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا ارحم الراحمين.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
Listen, brothers, thank you all for coming. This concludes our program for tonight. Please have your refreshments. Inshallah, we'll see you on Thursday at 8 o'clock.
الوداع الوداع شاہدی کے دوست دارو الوداع الوداع اے بھائی کے سوگوارو الوداع الوداع شاہدی کے دوست دارو الوداع الوداع سونا زینب سدھارو الوداع ہے الوداع بھائی کے سوگوارو الوداع ہے الوداع شاہدی کے دوست دارو الوداع ہے الوداع جاتی ہے پیارو